For the past 12 years, Julian Assange has been a man hunted by the US for publishing thousands of classified documents in 2010 and 2011. Harbouring refuge in the Ecuadorian Embassy for 7 years in the UK and then detained by the UK government. And a UK court in January 2021 ruled in Assange's favour, denying the US Assange's extradition because of concerns over his mental health. But persistence and promises to reduce the risk of suicide has paid off for the Americans following a ruling by the UK High Court late last year that actually granted Assange's extradition. Today, joining us is Greg Barnes, Julian Assange's Australian solicitor. Morning, Greg.
Good morning. I should clarify that by saying I'm an advisor to the Australian campaign, but also a lawyer.
You're appealing the ruling by the UK High Court. Why is that, and what are you hoping to achieve?
Well, the UK High Court, which is equivalent to our state Supreme Courts, overturned the original ruling of January this year, January last year, which said that Assange should not be extradited to the United States. What's happened since is that the High Court is now what's called certified a point of law for the UK Supreme Court to consider. And it's a very important point because what happened in the original hearing was that the United States essentially conceded that Assange could face torture in a supermax prison in the United States. They lost the case. They then went to the UK High Court with assurances that that wouldn't happen, that he'd get adequate medical care. And so the issue really for the UK Supreme Court is, can you rely on those assurances when they weren't given at the original hearing? The UK Supreme Court is a bit like our High Court. And so it's really a question of whether, one, they'll take the case, and two, when that case is going to be heard.
Now, we've seen a fairly steep decline in Julian Assange's mental health and physical health as well. How long can this drag on?
Well, look, the issue is really that, sheer humanity should tell you that we need to draw a line under this particular case. I'm not aware of any other Australian who's languishing under these sorts of conditions for such a lengthy period of time, whose health continues to decline markedly, both mental health and physical health. And he had as Stella Morris, his partner, said earlier this year, he has had a minor stroke. He's only 50 years of age, but when you see him, he certainly looks a lot older. So the toll on his health is enormous, and you do have to ask the question, when will you get to the point where what is already dangerous becomes more dangerous?
And how do you think the Australian government has fared with, this is an Australian citizen. Have they been doing their bit?
Well, the Australian government could intervene in this case at any time and hasn't, and so it's been disappointing. It could intervene because Australia is the United States' closest ally. It's one of the UK's closest allies. No one's asking the Australians to get involved in the case itself. What we're asking is that the Australian government get involved in this case diplomatically and politically to end it. This is a political case. It's being played out through the courts, but no one should be under any illusions it's anything other than a political case, because what is Assange sought by the Americans for? He's sought by the Americans because he revealed serious war crimes committed by the United States in theatres of war in Afghanistan and more particularly in Iraq. That was important for the world to know, but it embarrassed the Americans.
And so this is more about payback than any standing point in law, do you feel, Greg?
This is certainly about payback. I mean, as a lawyer, I can tell you there's really zero public interest in continuing to pursue this matter from a legal point of view. There are serious freedom of speech issues. The reason the Americans haven't gone after the New York Times, Washington Post, other newspapers which publish the same material is because they couldn't, because they are media organisations which have First Amendment rights in the United States. Assange is also a journalist and a publisher and ought to have the same rights. And so, this case is, as I say, completely political and it needs to be resolved politically.
So where to from here, Greg? What's the next step? What are we looking for?
Well, what we're looking for is an Australian government to say to the United States, we're your best ally, enough is enough. This is a point that former Foreign Minister Bob Carr has made. I do notice that Anthony Albanese, the opposition leader and the man who could be Prime Minister after the election this year, has said that most recently that there needs to be a quick resolution of this matter. What we'd be urging him to do is to pick up the phone to Joe Biden if he's elected and say that this is the first order of, certainly amongst the first items of business to be dealt with in resetting the relationship with the United States.
It surely couldn't be that hard with our new AUKUS agreement and the level of support we provide the Americans.
Well, that's exactly right. And, there is a precedent for this. We saw the David Hicks case now some 15, 16 years ago where Hicks was in Guantanamo Bay. Pressure came on the Australian government. The Australian government under John Howard then went to George W. Bush. Hicks was released back to Australia. I mean, in other words, this can be done and it should be done.
We've even seen it with the Bali 9, some of the pressure that was put on there to bring them home. And this is basically, could well be a death sentence for Julian Assange as well, should they continue with his cruel and unusual treatment.
There's no doubt that it will be a death sentence if he goes to the United States. He would get life imprisonment. That's an effective death penalty. But there's also, as we discussed earlier, the issue of the serious decline in his health. Is remarkably resilient, but there's only so much that people can take.
All right, Greg Barnes, thanks so much for your help and good luck with the fight.
Thank you.